Hi, how are you doing? Today we'll talk about one of the greatest philosophers of all time and a very influential one. You're familiar with the famous words of Descartes, aren't you? I think, therefore I am. Well, this is how Descartes describes the foundation of knowledge. In this video, let's discuss what Descartes meant. So, to start with, if you are watching this video, then you are most likely looking at a screen. Think to yourself, I'm looking at my smartphone, I'm in front of my laptop, or whatever is your situation. Now, is your belief here unquestionable? Is there any way that you could believe this yet your belief be untrue? Is there any possibility that you're mistaken about this belief? René Descartes, who was born in 1596 and died in 1650, argues you could be mistaken. This belief and almost all other beliefs are not certain. However, Descartes argues that there is one clear exception, which he says is, I think, therefore I am. So he claims to have found a belief that is certain and incontrovertible. One can hardly think of a philosophical saying that is more famous than this phrase from Descartes, but to be fair, it wasn't entirely a new idea. It had echoed through the history. For example, over 1,000 years before Descartes, Saint Augustine in The City of God, a book he wrote, he says, ergo si fallor, which is often reworded as fallor ergo sum. I make mistakes, therefore I am. But Descartes now widely and popularly holds the intellectual rights to this idea, and this is how the world of ideas innovation works. This video explores the meaning of this idea, its importance to Descartes, and its legacy for knowledge up to the present day. So first, let's talk about Descartes' struggle with skepticism. The phrase, I think, therefore I am, first appears in his writing Discourse on the Method in 1637. Later, Descartes changed the wording to I am, I exist in 1641 in his most celebrated work, Meditations on First Philosophy. It is also called the Meditations for short and is popular by that name. It is instructive to think why Descartes changes the wording from the Discourse on the Method to the Meditation. That is because, unlike in the Discourse, Descartes uses rigorous tests of doubt in the Meditations, where even simple conclusions are put to question. So, in other words, in setting the stage for I think, therefore I am, we are unsure that logic is reliable, so can't legitimately argue from arguments to a conclusion that we exist. Therefore, in meditation, Descartes is looking for a foundational belief which can serve as ground knowledge to justify other beliefs. For a belief to be properly foundational, it has to be in no need of justification itself, right? In the Meditations, Descartes thinks about the fact that he has had many false beliefs and makes an attempt to address that problem with the hope of discovering a way to make sure he only has true beliefs and even that scientific research yields only truths as well. So the approach he takes is to doubt or not believe any statement that is false or could be false. He acknowledges that if his senses have misled him before, they can also be deceiving him now. So if they misled him in the past, he can't trust his senses. They could also be misleading him now. That if his reasoning has been mistaken before, he can also be reasoning erroneously now. So Descartes now is suspicious of all beliefs from his senses and from his faculty of reasoning. because he knows those beliefs could be false. So he concedes that his senses might be deceiving him because they have deceived him before into reasoning badly. So Descartes doesn't rule out the possibility that all his beliefs about the world external to his own mind are illusions caused by a demon. Now, many of you might recall the science fiction film The Matrix. Even those who were not old enough to watch it then, it was a very popular movie. So The Matrix is informed on this idea. One's belief, if you watch the movie, may be triggered by the Matrix, not the real world, and so they are false. For example, someone plugged into the Matrix believing she's riding a bicycle is not actually riding a bicycle, so that belief is false. Descartes thus delves into skepticism, the idea that we lack knowledge or justified belief. Therefore, there are different kinds of skeptics, but to keep it simple, before he reaches I think therefore I am, Descartes seems close to global skeptics who deny that we have any knowledge at all about anything. Descartes then continues to contend that I think therefore I am, empowers him to overcome skepticism and show that we have knowledge with certainty. So that brings us to the aspect of I think therefore I am and certainty. So after contemplating the evil demon, Descartes soon discovers I think therefore I am. He realizes that thinking I think therefore I am withstands the pull of irrationality, even if all the beliefs and types of beliefs that Descartes reviews are false or could be false. At least he must exist to be deceived. So the fact that he is thinking about these beliefs shows that he exists. So even if one doubts one's own existence, one must exist at that moment, right? Because there must be someone or something to do the doubting. So doubting is a way of thinking, and in order to think, one is required to exist in the first place. Otherwise, one can't think. It is impossible to think and yet not exist. So the I think element in this phrase indicates the direct, immediate, certain knowledge of one's own existence. Thought needs a thinker, and this is known with certainty. So someone who doesn't exist can be deceived, right? I'm trying to keep it simple. Descartes thus discovered that he was looking for some certain, undeniable, indisputable knowledge. What arises from the certainty of I think, therefore I am, is that Descartes must be a thing that thinks. I think, therefore I am doesn't show that Descartes has a body or a brain. These can still be doubted, but he exists. Only thought is certain, Descartes says. I am, I exist, that is certain. But for how long? For as long as I think. So it might perhaps even happen that if I stop thinking, I should at once altogether stop being. And from here, Descartes then proceeds to overcome skepticism. So once I think, therefore I am is established, Descartes claims it can provide a foundation to discover other truths that are certain. He suggests that it is indisputably true because it is clear and it is distinct. As for clarity, Descartes explains some perceptions are so transparent and at the same time so simple, we can never think without believing them to be true. And then when something is distinct, the mind has an unambiguous idea of what is most essential about that thing, right? That is its distinction. So these characteristics become the norm against which all other beliefs can be evaluated. Clarity and distinction Descartes contends that the clarity and distinctness rule developed from I think, therefore I am can justify our beliefs about the external world. But what verifies the clarity and distinctness rule? You might ask that question, and that's a very legitimate question. Descartes, according to him, he asserts God's existence. So after much reflection, he argues that God exists. According to Descartes, his idea of God is such that it could only have been caused by God, as Descartes could have created that idea on his own or from any of his own experiences. Descartes then argues that a God would not allow us to be deceived when we understand objects clearly and distinctly, and so God would not allow us to regularly have false beliefs. According to Descartes, his reasoning establishes that what he originally doubted, he actually knows with certainty. Thus, I think, therefore I am, defeats the skeptical concerns that Descartes had earlier and forms the basis for a series of claims that build upon one another. So let me sum it up for you simply. Look, Descartes was seeking a way to establish certain knowledge that could not be doubted, right? He wanted to find something that was indubitable, something that could serve as an absolute starting point for constructing a new system of knowledge, right? Simple. So in his quest for certainty, he decided to doubt everything he could possibly doubt, even the existence of the external world and the reality of his senses. Now, as Descartes engaged in this process of radical doubt, he realized that even if he were to doubt everything, he couldn't doubt the act of doubting itself. So, in other words, while he could doubt the existence of external things, he couldn't doubt the fact that he was engaged in the process of doubting. This led him to the famous conclusion, cogito ergo sum in Latin, which translates to I think, therefore I am in English. Descartes' arguments, I would summarize them very clearly for you and very succinctly. Number one, if I am doubting, then I must be thinking, right? Can you doubt without thinking? No. If I am thinking, then I must exist as a thinking thing. Number three, even the act of doubt presupposes a being, a thinking self. So, therefore, the very act of doubt confirms the existence of a thinking self. So, Descartes used this cogito as the foundational point upon which to build a system of knowledge. He believed that while he could doubt everything else, he couldn't doubt his own existence as a thinking being. From this starting point, Descartes attempted to reconstruct knowledge about the external world or other aspects of reality. I think, therefore I am, is often seen as the foundational statement in modern philosophy, representing the certainty of self-awareness and consciousness as an essential starting point for understanding reality. However, it's worth noting that this statement has also been critiqued and analyzed extensively by philosophers over the centuries, leading to various interpretations and discussions about its implications. And that gives rise to other questions which we shall discuss in future. We don't have enough time left. But to give you an idea, modern theorists of knowledge tend to deny that knowledge requires certainty. They tend to be fallibilists, arguing that we can know something without being certain that it is true. They say the problem with Descartes' standard for knowledge is that almost no beliefs meet it. Therefore, if certainty is a necessary requirement for knowledge, we are left with very little knowledge indeed. However, the challenge in denying Descartes' thought is that if certainty is not required for knowledge, what is? So if certainty is not required for knowledge, then what is required for knowledge? So my view is that the critical part of knowledge is not stating a fact, but representing that fact in a useful way. For that, one needs certainty. So we'll have that discussion in one of our future videos. For now, hope you enjoyed and you understand a little bit better how Descartes' thinking process evolved over time and how he arrived at this thought and what he meant from it. Thank you very much.